So we're in complete lockdown here in Vietnam, and we have been for the last couple of months or so, and I've started to realize something. Since the beginning of this lockdown, I've realized that I'm getting progressively worse at focusing at any one task at a time. And I don't mean I'm getting slightly worse at focusing on whatever I have to do in front of me, but I mean my focus and my attention span is deteriorating quickly. But why is that? And what is it about this lockdown that is affecting my attention span so much? Well, you could say that it's several things. So firstly, I'm stuck in my apartment and I literally leave the house maybe once a week to buy food. It's harder to talk to people as well and network with people. And it's this kind of mind melting that happens where I'm talking with friends that are what you might consider traditionally successful. And that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from. But I'm not getting any of that. But I've been thinking about this for the last few days, and that's not the main reason why I'm struggling with focus. The main reason is my phone. You see, now that I don't leave the house, my laptop is my workhorse. I use my laptop to work, to earn money, to put food on the table, to pay the rent. But what exactly does my phone do? There are two tasks that I use on my phone that make me somewhat productive. My task list and my calendar app. And I use these so much that I've set it up so that when I swipe right from my home screen, I get straight to my task list, and when I swipe left on my home screen, it takes me to my calendar widget. Now, these two apps right there are the only apps that I use on my phone that have a positive effect on my productivity. Maybe my alarm clock also, because it wakes me up in the morning, but right now in this lockdown, those are the only apps that are productive apps. Now, here's the problem. There are so many apps on my phone that distract me. So I've noticed that I check my email probably more than 15 times a day, I'd say. I check my stocks and shares and cryptocurrency portfolio probably 15 times a day. I check the BBC News app maybe 5 or 10 times a day. I scroll through Facebook and Instagram maybe 10, 15, 20 times a day. And it's not for long, probably spending a few minutes each time, but it all adds up. And for me, it's not necessarily the time that I spend on those apps. I probably spend about 20 to 30 minutes on social media a day, which isn't really that bad. But every time I open an app, it snaps me out of this kind of focused state that I was in. And that's where the real damage is done. Because before this lockdown, I could stay focused for hours and hours on one task relatively easily. But for now, I'll be honest, my phone distracts me after only about 20 or 30 minutes. And my phone has kind of been training my brain to get this kind of dopamine hit every 20 or so minutes. So every time I get a notification on Facebook Messenger, or every time I scroll through social media, or every time my stock portfolio goes up, I'm getting this small dopamine hit. And my brain is being trained into trying to get this dopamine hit as often as it can. And I think YouTube Shorts, but particularly TikTok videos and Instagram Reels, so these kind of 60-second videos are really incredibly destructive for our attention span, because the content is just so fast-paced. You're watching one video and then you're straight onto another video and then onto another and then onto another, and before you know it, you've just spent 30 minutes watching this kind of short-form content. And if I asked you, what have you just watched? I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to tell me. This short form content is the complete opposite to some of the, for example, the courses that I've created that I've been working on. For example, the Transform Your Grades in 30 Days course, which is literally 6 hours of video content. And there are other stuff like workbooks, worksheets, quizzes, that kind of thing too. But if I asked you after watching 1 hour of the course what you learned, you'd probably be able to give me a list of study strategies, productivity hacks, etc. that you've just learned. If you watched an hour of short form TikTok videos and I asked you what you learned, your answer would probably be nothing. The link for the Transform Your Grades course is down in the description below. It's kind of this all-in-one neat little package with everything you need to level up your grades in a healthy and sustainable way, but it's the opposite of what social media platforms are kind of trying to push people into, like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. They're all kind of pushing and encouraging you to watch shorter and shorter videos. And I think for attention span and focus, that is a really destructive road to head down. And it's interesting because for me, I don't want to multitask. I want to focus on one task, get completely in the zone, enter into a state of flow, finish that task, and move on to the next task. However, there is an argument that multitasking can be beneficial for productivity, and this problem that I have with struggling to focus isn't actually a problem at all. So I was listening to Naval Ravikant a couple of days ago on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Naval is an Indian-American entrepreneur and investor, and he was saying how he actually uses this inability to zone in on one task to his advantage.
In modern society, we get too much information too quickly, and so our attention spans are very low. So you get Twitter, you get Instagram, you get Facebook, you're just used to being bombarded with information. So you can take that to, you can view that as a negative and be like, I have no attention span, or you could view that as a positive. I multitask really well and I can dig really fast. If I find a thread that's interesting, I can follow through 5 social networks, through the web, through the libraries, through the books, and I can really get to the bottom of this thing very quickly. It's like the Library of Alexandria that I can research at my disposal.
And it's a good point. We're living in an era where we have information overload. Literally almost anything we want to learn, we can just type it into Google and you've got thousands of web pages teaching you exactly what you want to learn. It really is incredible. And Naval uses that to his advantage because, like he said, you can find yourself in this rabbit hole of searching for information and just going deeper and deeper into the subject. And that's awesome when it happens, but at the same time, I do think that this kind of information overload does need to be controlled somewhat. So it got me thinking, if literally the only 2 apps that I use on my phone that help with my productivity is the task list app and the calendar app and maybe my alarm clock app too, why do I even have my phone here? Like, what's the point in it? It's having a net negative effect on my productivity. So what if I could just take my phone and throw it away and not use it? So for the rest of this lockdown, I don't know how long it's going to be, 1 month, 5 months, I don't know. But for the rest of the lockdown, I'm going to carry out a kind of experiment. I'm not going to use my phone, and I'm going to replace it with this iPad that I literally just bought last night. I just bought it, and I've been thinking about this for a while. This iPad is literally my first proper Apple device. I say proper because I have the AirPods Pro, but I don't own anything else that's Apple. I'm using an Android phone and Windows desktop, and I have done for more than a decade, and I've been very reluctant to buy any kind of tablet because I guess I like minimalism. I like digital minimalism too, and I don't like owning a lot of things. As you can see behind me, my office is pretty much empty, but literally yesterday I bought this iPad Pro to kind of see whether I can live my life without actually having a phone. And I know what you're thinking. Mike, you're just replacing one procrastination device for another procrastination device. Well, not entirely. You see, my phone is set up for short form content to deliver these kind of dopamine hits, and it's quite difficult to do anything meaningful or productive on my phone. The screen is just too small to get any real work done. The iPad with the keyboard, and the keyboard is coming tomorrow, and the pencil, however, they're a lot more usable. I won't be downloading any messenger apps or social media apps or news apps. I won't even have my emails on there. The iPad will be to take notes, to draw out plans, to write scripts, strategies, language learning, reading, to prepare for these kinds of videos. I want it to be a device that is completely distraction free, or at least as distraction free as I can make it. And it's worth pointing out that I will still be using my laptop right here because there are just some things that you can't do very well on an iPad, such as video editing or more processing intensive tasks. But I'm going to try and limit my time spent on my laptop and move as much of my workflow over to my iPad, which is more of a controlled environment. And there's one thing that I do have to be careful of though. An iPad is often considered a media consumption device, right? So it's perfect for watching Netflix, watching YouTube videos, because the screen is so good. The form factor is just so small. The speakers are phenomenal on it. So I've got to make sure that I don't fall into this kind of trap of just watching Netflix or YouTube for hours every day. But I'm actually quite good with media consumption, with what I watch. The media that I consume is generally educational stuff. It's content that build me up, documentaries, for example, podcasts, educational YouTube videos, that kind of thing. But the idea here is that when I had my phone lying next to me, every single minute that I was working, it trained my brain to significantly decrease my attention span because the next dopamine hit was just literally one tap away. But hopefully with my phone out of the picture, I'll be able to retrain my brain to be able to stay focused for longer periods of time without getting distracted like I was before the lockdown. So I'll report back to you in a few weeks or a month or so and let you know how it goes. And it's going to be strange because literally every single day of my life, I don't know, for the last 15, maybe 20 years, I don't know, I've had my phone with me everywhere I go. It's the only thing that I take with me to bed. When I go to shower, my phone is right there. When I leave the house, I never leave the house without my phone. I feel kind of lost if I don't have my phone with me. So it's going to be interesting to see how living without a phone is going to be, because it's essentially an addiction, right? It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. And if, like me, you're struggling with staying focused, I made a video a few weeks back on how to study with extreme focus. I go into more detail about why it's so important to enter into a state of flow, because that's really when most of us do our best work. You can click on the video on the screen. Alternatively, I made another video on how waking up at 4:45 a.m. doubled my productivity. And once again, there's a 50% promotion running on the Transform Your Grades course. So if you're finally ready to start working on improving your grades long term, then hit the link in the description and I'll see you over there.